The royal guard noticed a code red signal during the parade, the moment he swerved to protect Kate. London had awoken to a special kind of excitement that only came once in a while, the kind that made people chatter non-stop as they waited along the streets. Today was a day that would be remembered by many, though most of them had no idea just how dramatic it could become. The Grand Royal Parade was taking place, and the whole city seemed to be buzzing with anticipation. Flags waved from every window, children perched on their parents' shoulders, and cameras clicked endlessly, capturing smiles, laughter, and the rare magic of seeing royalty in person. Amid the joyful chaos, Sergeant James Holloway stood tall and steady. His uniform was immaculate. The polished buttons gleamed under the morning sun, his boots shone as though they had been kissed by light, and the red jacket he wore seemed to demand attention without saying a word. Holloway's face was calm, almost expressionless, but his eyes were alive with focus. He was not just a man in a uniform. He was a trained observer, a protector, and in a few hours he would be the difference between a normal day and disaster. For most people, a parade was a celebration, a time for waving and smiling, perhaps for catching a glimpse of the royals and dreaming of a world of glittering crowns and flowing gowns. But for Holloway, a parade was a test of discipline, patience, and alertness. Every step he took, every glance he made had purpose. He was acutely aware of the streets, the people, the crowds that stretched for blocks. His mind cataloged everything, which way the wind blew, where people clustered most densely, and even which spectators seemed a little too quiet, a little too still. Princess Kate's carriage approached slowly, drawn by the white horses that trotted rhythmically, their hooves clattering against the cobblestones. The crowd erupted in cheers as they caught sight of her. She waved gracefully, her smile shining like a beacon. Children screamed with delight, waving flags that were far too big for their little hands. Cameras and phones pointed in her direction as if trying to freeze the perfect moment in time. Holloway's eyes, however, were not on the crowd. They were on the subtle movements of the people around her. He scanned, assessed, and cataloged, all while maintaining the appearance of a ceremonial guard, standing tall and unmoving. Even though everything seemed peaceful, Holloway knew better. He had trained for years, learning to spot even the tiniest irregularity. Today he thought it might not just be a training exercise. Every parade had risks. Every crowd held possibilities, and the security protocols were strict for a reason. He adjusted his posture slightly, shifting the weight from one foot to the other, not because he needed to move, but because it kept him alert, prepared for anything. As the carriage rolled past him, he caught a glimpse of Kate's serene expression. She was focused on waving, on acknowledging the people who had come from all over the country just to see her. She had no idea what was happening behind the uniform, behind the straight face of the man walking alongside her carriage. Holloway thought of this and felt a quiet responsibility settle over him, like a weight he was proud to carry. His eyes scanned the crowd again. Every gesture, every movement, every glance mattered. Around him, the streets were alive. Merchants shouted greetings, selling hats, banners, and little trinkets. The smell of roasted nuts and caramelized sugar filled the air. Children ran through the crowd, tugging at their parents' hands, trying to get a better view. Some of them waved shyly at the guards, and Holloway gave a small nod, a gesture of acknowledgement without breaking protocol. To the crowd, he was just a figure in a red jacket, a piece of the pageantry. But to Holloway, every cheer, every whisper, and every flash of a camera was a potential detail he needed to notice. The parade had its rhythm. Bands played cheerful music, drums keeping the beat as dancers and performers moved along the streets. The carriage moved steadily, horses prancing with disciplined grace. Holloway's focus never wavered. He knew that in a moment everything could change. Parades, by their very nature, were large, chaotic, and unpredictable. One small slip, one unnoticed movement could be catastrophic, and in that thought there was no fear, only vigilance. He remembered a lesson from training: appear calm, stay calm. Your calm protects more than yourself. Holloway took a deep breath, letting the cool air fill his lungs, steadying his heartbeat and preparing himself. Every detail he noticed was logged in his mind. The man adjusting his jacket at the corner, the woman bending down to tie her child's shoelace, the glint of sunlight off a camera lens. It all mattered. To anyone else, it was just life moving around them, but to Holloway, it was a constantly changing landscape of potential threats and safety measures. The carriage moved closer now, and Holloway felt the subtle shift in the crowd's energy. People leaned forward, their excitement tangible. Cameras clicked even faster. He caught a glimpse of Kate again. She was smiling, a picture of grace and composure, completely unaware of the silent tension in the air around her. Holloway's training told him to anticipate every possibility. The crowd could shift, a person could stumble, or something unexpected could occur. He adjusted his stance slightly, ready to move, but keeping his outward composure perfect. He thought about the importance of today, not just as a ceremonial event, but as a responsibility. Thousands of eyes were on the parade, but only a few of them were trained to see beyond the spectacle. Only a few, like Holloway, noticed the subtle signs, the micro moments that could indicate danger. And yet he had to act as if nothing were amiss. That was the challenge, the silent heroism of the uniform. As the carriage drew even closer, Holloway's mind ran through procedures, escape routes, and positions. He calculated distances, angles, and possible outcomes, all in the split second before they would matter. To an observer, he was simply marching, standing tall, part of a living painting of tradition and ceremony. But inside, his mind raced, prepared to act without hesitation. Every step, every movement, every detail of the crowd was important. The sun glinted off the polished metal of the carriage, and for a moment, Holloway allowed himself to appreciate the beauty of the day. It was a rare, fleeting moment where the chaos of responsibility and the calm of discipline overlapped. He felt a strange sense of pride, not for the uniform he wore, but for the duty he upheld, the invisible shield he provided for those who relied on him. The crowd surged slightly as the carriage passed a narrow street. Holloway felt the ripple of energy, the subtle shifts in the masses that could turn into something dangerous in an instant. He tightened his grip on the ceremonial sword at his side, not as a threat, but as a reminder of his readiness. Every parade had these moments, unnoticed by most, but they were critical to his role. Princess Kate waved again, smiling genuinely at the cheering crowds. Holloway's eyes swept over the scene one more time, cataloging, analyzing, and preparing for what could come next. There was an unspoken promise in his stance. As long as he was there, she would be protected. That promise carried weight heavier than any medal or recognition. It was a quiet duty, unseen but deeply meaningful. And so, as the parade continued down the streets of London, Holloway marched in perfect step, part of the spectacle but apart from it, his mind alert, his senses sharp, and his focus unwavering. To the crowds, it was a beautiful day, a celebration of tradition and royalty. To Sergeant James Holloway, it was a day of vigilance, a test of skill and patience, and the calm before a moment that would demand everything he had been trained to do. The parade continued down the wide streets, the sounds of cheering filling the air. The band's music played loudly, bright and lively, while dancers twirled along the sidewalks. Flags waved in a rainbow of colors, and children's laughter rang through the city. On the surface, everything seemed perfect, almost magical. The kind of day where people would remember the smiles and the excitement for years to come. But behind the calm surface, Sergeant James Holloway's mind was far from relaxed. Even as the crowd celebrated, a small, flashing signal appeared on his communication device. It was subtle, almost easy to miss if he hadn't been trained to notice it. The code red alert was quiet, almost invisible, but its meaning was clear to him, a serious and immediate threat. Holloway's heart remained steady, but his senses sharpened. Years of training had prepared him for this, but he knew that preparation would matter little unless he acted with precision. The crowd had no idea, and that was exactly how it needed to stay. He scanned the faces around him. There were tourists with wide eyes, families taking photographs, and street vendors waving their hands, hoping someone would buy their merchandise. Holloway's gaze moved beyond the smiles and the waving flags. He noticed the smallest details. A person adjusting their backpack, someone moving too deliberately against the crowd's flow, a glint of metal catching the sunlight in a way that seemed unusual. Every movement was noted, catalogued, and analyzed, but outwardly he remained the calm, unmoving guard that the public expected to see. Holloway's mind raced as he ran through the procedures. Code red meant that an immediate threat had been detected, but the nature of the threat could vary. It could be a person, an object, or even an accident waiting to happen. The key was to respond without causing panic. A single wrong move could turn a controlled parade into chaos. His role was to act decisively while keeping the public safe, keeping the princess safe, and keeping everything looking normal. He remembered every drill he had practiced. The lessons were ingrained. Observe first, act second. Protect always. Holloway's eyes moved along the perimeter of the parade route, noting exits, entrances, and possible blind spots. He saw a mother bending to pick up a dropped balloon, a young boy leaning too far over the barricade, and a man shifting nervously near the edge of the crowd. Each detail mattered. One mistake, one overlooked signal could change everything. Holloway's mind shifted to Princess Kate. She was in her carriage, waving gracefully, oblivious to the tension building just meters away. Her smile was genuine, her posture elegant, and her demeanor calm. Holloway knew that the moment the public cheered, she had no idea what could happen in an instant. He felt a quiet responsibility settle over him, the kind that only those who serve in protective roles understand. It was heavy, yes, but it was also something he carried proudly. The streets seemed to stretch endlessly. The carriage moved slowly, the horses trotting in perfect rhythm. Holloway's eyes scanned constantly, moving from side to side, checking every possible angle. People leaned forward, trying to get a better view, oblivious to the silent, watchful eyes that moved with the carriage. Vendors waved hats and souvenirs, photographers shouted for the perfect shot, and somewhere nearby, a balloon slipped into the sky, floating gently above the parade. Holloway noticed it all. Nothing escaped him, and yet nothing betrayed the tension building within him. The code red alert was still active. Holloway's device vibrated softly, reminding him that this was not a drill. The signal was intermittent, suggesting that the potential threat was moving or that the situation was still unclear. He had to be ready for anything, and he had to be ready now. He adjusted his stance slightly, keeping his movements minimal so the public wouldn't notice. His hand rested lightly on the ceremonial sword at his side, not to draw it, but to remind himself that he was prepared for immediate action. He thought about the training that had brought him to this moment. Countless hours of drills, simulations, and exercises had taught him to notice the smallest irregularities. Now, all of it was coming into play. The difference between observation and action could be seconds, and in those seconds, a lot could happen. Holloway's focus sharpened and his breathing stayed even. Calmness was part of the protection, panic could be contagious, and the last thing he wanted was for the crowd to sense danger. The crowd's energy was growing. People cheered louder, waved more vigorously, and the music swelled with excitement. Holloway's eyes moved quickly, noting anyone who seemed out of place. There was a man near the barricade, holding a large camera, but something about the way he shifted his weight made Holloway pause. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but he had learned to trust those instincts. He cataloged the man, along with several others who seemed unusually still or unusually eager to get closer. Every potential threat had to be considered, no matter how small the chance. Holloway's thoughts briefly returned to Kate. She was a public figure, yes, but she was also a person, a woman with her own life, family, and sense of safety. He had no personal connection, but in that moment it didn't matter. His duty was absolute. He would act without hesitation to protect her. He would not allow the parade, the crowd, or the celebration to overshadow the reality that danger could appear at any time. A subtle shift in the crowd caught his attention. People began to lean forward slightly, as if sensing something he couldn't yet see. Holloway's instincts screamed at him to stay alert. He noticed a glint of something metallic under a coat in the crowd, small, almost invisible, but enough to trigger his attention. He didn't move yet. Moving too soon could create suspicion, could alert the person, and could cause panic. Instead, he kept observing, cataloging, and preparing to act instantly. Time seemed to slow as the carriage continued down the street. Holloway's mind raced through potential scenarios, each one carefully considered. If the person with the metallic glint tried to move closer, what would be the best response? If the threat was sudden, how could he shield the princess without causing alarm? Every drill, every lesson, every experience came together in his mind. The crowd was oblivious. To them, the parade was perfect. The sun shone warmly, the music played, and Kate smiled from her carriage. Holloway's outward appearance matched the calm of the crowd, but his mind was anything but calm. Every sense was alert. Every nerve was ready. Every muscle was prepared to move at a moment's notice. The code red signal pulsed again, a quiet reminder that the situation was real. Holloway adjusted his stance slightly, shifting his weight in a way that allowed him to react instantly. He kept his eyes on the crowd, moving methodically, scanning every face, every movement, every detail. Nothing escaped him. And yet to everyone else, he was just another guard, marching in time, part of the pageantry, part of the tradition. Minutes felt like hours as the carriage moved closer. Holloway's mind cataloged everything, yet he remained outwardly calm. Every child waving, every parent cheering, every camera flashing was part of the backdrop. The reality of the potential danger was invisible to them. Holloway understood that part of his duty was to keep it that way, to protect, to observe, and to act only when necessary. The tension was invisible but undeniable. Holloway's eyes caught the smallest shift in the crowd again. His hand twitched slightly near his sword, a reflex, not an action. The code red signal had not changed, but the threat was growing closer, or at least that was what his instincts told him. He felt a quiet determination settle over him. Whatever happened next, he would act. There was no hesitation, no second-guessing, no fear. There was only duty. And then, in the quiet of his observation, Holloway noticed something that made his heart rate quicken. A movement that didn't belong, a presence that felt wrong, and a situation that demanded immediate attention. It was subtle, almost imperceptible to anyone else, but to him, it was clear. The moment of decision was approaching. The subtle movements in the crowd grew more noticeable now, though most people were still oblivious to the tension that Sergeant James Holloway felt in every fiber of his being. The code red alert pulsed softly on his device, a quiet reminder that the threat was real and immediate. Holloway's eyes darted across the street, measuring distances, angles, and positions. The parade continued, music blaring and crowds cheering, but for him, the world had narrowed to a single focus: the safety of Princess Kate. He noticed a figure moving against the natural flow of the crowd. At first, it was barely perceptible. A slight twist of the body, a glint of something metal, a foot stepping too carefully. But Holloway's instincts told him it was significant. Every drill, every training session, every moment spent preparing for the unexpected had brought him to this second. He didn't hesitate. He began to shift his stance subtly, ensuring that he could move instantly if required, all while remaining calm and composed in the eyes of the public. The carriage continued its steady path. Kate waved to the crowd, completely unaware of the potential danger inching closer with each heartbeat. Holloway's mind cataloged everything: the expressions on faces, the position of hands, the rhythm of steps. He could almost predict the flow of the crowd, and in the very next moment, his instincts confirmed the threat. The figure had changed position, moving closer to the carriage with purpose. Holloway's pulse quickened, though not with fear. It was a surge of focus, an alertness honed over years of service. In that instant, Holloway made a split-second decision. He moved forward, stepping in the path of potential danger, positioning himself between the figure and the princess. Every muscle in his body tensed, ready to react to any sudden movement. His eyes remained locked on the crowd, scanning for any other threats, but the figure's intent was clear. Holloway's training took over, guiding him with a precision that felt almost automatic. The crowd's cheers continued, oblivious to the silent drama unfolding just meters away. People leaned forward, waving their flags, taking photos, and shouting their excitement. To them, it was just another moment of celebration. To Holloway, it was the difference between calm and chaos. He adjusted his grip on the ceremonial sword at his side, not to draw it, but as a tactile reminder of readiness. His stance was firm, yet fluid, a careful balance of stability and mobility. The figure suddenly made a quick move, an attempt to get closer to the carriage. Holloway reacted instantly, stepping forward and intercepting the path, his body acting as a shield. Time seemed to stretch in those seconds. The noise of the parade faded, and all that existed was the split-second exchange between instinct and action. Holloway's eyes never left the figure, his mind calculating the next move even as he blocked the immediate threat. Princess Kate, still smiling, remained unaware of how close the danger had come. Holloway's focus was entirely on the figure, ready to respond to any sudden escalation. His movements were precise, controlled, and deliberate. Every step he took was measured to protect her without drawing attention. He understood that the crowd could panic if they sensed anything wrong, and maintaining the illusion of calm was just as important as the act of protection itself. The figure hesitated, perhaps realizing that Holloway was prepared. The guard's presence was commanding, his posture unwavering. Holloway could see the uncertainty in the person's eyes, a flicker of doubt that had not been there before. This hesitation was all Holloway needed to keep the princess safe. He subtly shifted his position, ensuring that no angle was left unguarded, that no part of the carriage was exposed. Seconds stretched into moments that felt like minutes. Holloway's senses were heightened, every sound amplified, the clip-clop of the horses' hooves, the rustle of flags, the distant cheers of the crowd. Yet through it all, his mind was clear and focused. There was no fear, no hesitation, only a single thought: protect the princess. His body moved with the precision of someone who had trained for this moment countless times, yet each motion was imbued with instinctual urgency. The figure made another move, this time faster, more deliberate. Holloway responded instantly, adjusting his stance and positioning to intercept again. He moved like water, fluid yet unyielding, ready to absorb any force directed toward the carriage. His eyes remained locked on the figure, analyzing every micro-movement. Each decision was instantaneous, each reaction automatic. Training and instinct merged seamlessly into action. The crowd continued to cheer, completely unaware that they were mere spectators to a real-life act of bravery. Children waved at the carriage, adults lifted cameras, and the music played on, masking the tension that lay just a few meters away. Holloway's presence created an invisible barrier, one that the figure could not penetrate. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing on him, but instead of fear, it fueled his focus, sharpening every sense. Time seemed to stretch further as the carriage drew closer to the edge of the parade route. Holloway knew that any misstep now could have serious consequences. He moved with precision, cutting off the figure's access, while ensuring that the princess's path remained clear and uninterrupted. His movements were silent, almost imperceptible to the crowd, yet they carried the full force of trained action. The figure, realizing that they could not reach the princess, hesitated once more. Holloway's eyes narrowed slightly, analyzing every detail. He noticed a momentary lapse, a shift in balance, a subtle change in stance that revealed vulnerability. Without breaking his calm demeanor, Holloway leaned slightly forward, closing the last gap between the figure and the carriage. He was ready for any sudden action, any attempt to bypass him, but the figure did not move further. For a brief moment, the threat seemed to dissipate, but Holloway did not relax. He remained alert, scanning the surrounding crowd for any secondary threats. The parade moved on, the carriage continuing its path, and yet the tension lingered in the air, invisible to everyone else but palpable to him. His training had taught him that danger could come from unexpected directions, and he was prepared to respond instantly if needed. Princess Kate waved again, her smile radiant, completely unaware of how close she had come to danger. Holloway's focus remained on the crowd, his eyes scanning, cataloging, and preparing for any further movement. The figure had retreated slightly, blending into the crowd, but Holloway's vigilance did not waver. He understood that threats were rarely isolated, and he remained ready to act at a moment's notice. The parade continued, horses trotting rhythmically, music swelling, and the crowd cheering louder than ever. Holloway's movements were subtle but deliberate, a dance of protection and precision. He remained between the princess and any potential threat, his presence a quiet but powerful shield. Every step, every glance, every adjustment was designed to maintain safety while keeping the illusion of calm intact. As the carriage moved further down the street, Holloway's mind processed the events in real time. He cataloged the figure's movements, noting patterns, hesitations, and intentions. His senses were attuned to the smallest irregularity, the tiniest change in behavior. He remained ready to act, aware that the situation could escalate again at any moment. Finally, the immediate threat began to disperse. Holloway's eyes tracked the figure as they melted back into the crowd, disappearing from sight but not from memory. His body remained tense, his mind alert, but the immediate danger had passed. The parade continued without interruption, the crowd oblivious to the heroic intervention that had just occurred. Princess Kate smiled and waved, completely unaware of the invisible shield that had protected her just moments ago. Holloway allowed himself a small, controlled breath. He remained calm outwardly, maintaining the appearance of a ceremonial guard, but inside, a sense of quiet relief washed over him. He had acted precisely, decisively, and effectively. The threat had been neutralized without panic, without chaos, and most importantly, without harm. His training, his instincts, and his years of preparation had all come together in that critical moment, and the princess had been kept safe. Yet even as relief began to settle, Holloway knew that his duty was far from over. The parade continued, the crowd still cheering, and the code red alert reminded him that vigilance was ongoing. There could be no lapse in attention, no distraction, no complacency. His role demanded focus, precision, and constant awareness, and he embraced it fully, understanding the weight of responsibility he carried. The immediate threat had passed, but the streets of London remained alive with excitement, music, and laughter. To the crowd, the parade continued as if nothing had happened. Children waved flags, adults lifted cameras, and the band's drums echoed through the city. The horses trotted gracefully, and Princess Kate continued to smile and wave, radiating calm and elegance. To everyone else, it was a day of celebration and joy. But for Sergeant James Holloway, the parade was far from ordinary. His senses were still alert, his mind processing every movement, every glance, every subtle shift in the crowd. Holloway took a deep, controlled breath, allowing his muscles to relax slightly but never fully. The adrenaline of the moment was fading, but the weight of responsibility remained. He continued to march alongside the carriage, his posture perfect, his expression calm, his outward composure betraying nothing of the tension he had just experienced. Every step, every motion was deliberate. The crowd saw a ceremonial guard, disciplined and steady. What they could not see was the intense focus, the calculated awareness, and the quiet relief that ran through him after protecting the princess. The figure who had caused the alarm had melted back into the crowd, their movements blending with the bustling spectators. Holloway's eyes followed them briefly, cataloging their path, noting their posture, their gait, and their disappearance into the masses. He knew that while the immediate threat had passed, he could not let his guard down. Threats could be layered, with more than one person acting simultaneously or with secondary risks emerging unexpectedly. His training reminded him to remain alert, even when the crisis seemed over. Around him, the public's excitement had not wavered. People cheered louder, unaware of how close danger had been. Cameras flashed continuously, capturing moments of joy and admiration. Holloway's eyes swept across the crowd, still scanning for anomalies, still anticipating the unexpected. Every smile, every wave, every cheer was now part of a backdrop against which he would remain vigilant. To an ordinary observer, the parade was perfect. To Holloway, it was a complex scene of controlled chaos, requiring constant attention. Princess Kate's carriage moved with steady elegance, the horses' hooves marking a rhythmic pattern along the cobblestones. Holloway maintained his position beside the carriage, remaining a silent guardian. He felt a quiet satisfaction, not in glory or recognition, but in the knowledge that his actions had kept her safe. His mind replayed the moments of the threat, analyzing his responses, noting the precision and speed of his actions. Each decision, each step, each motion had been guided by training, instinct, and unwavering focus. Despite the relief of immediate safety, Holloway's vigilance did not waver. The parade route stretched ahead, filled with cheering spectators, waving flags, and joyful faces. He scanned, observed, and cataloged continuously, aware that even a momentary lapse could be dangerous. The code red alert had been temporary, but its lessons remained. Preparation, awareness, and rapid response were essential. The crowd would remain oblivious to the silent tension, but Holloway knew that every step of the parade required careful attention. The carriage passed another section of the crowd, and Holloway noticed the subtle energy shifts of people leaning forward, craning their necks, or shifting to see better. These small, seemingly ordinary movements were critical to him. A crowd was unpredictable, and even the innocent actions of spectators could create opportunities for danger. Holloway adjusted his pace subtly, maintaining balance, keeping the princess protected while remaining outwardly composed. Every movement was deliberate, every decision made in an instant. A sense of quiet pride settled over him, tempered by the awareness that his role was not about recognition. No one in the crowd knew the danger that had been averted, and that was exactly how it should be. Holloway had trained to serve, to protect, and to act silently, without expectation of applause. The satisfaction came from knowing the princess was safe, from knowing that his vigilance had made a difference in an invisible but crucial way. As the parade continued, Holloway's mind reflected on the broader significance of his role. To the public, the Royal Guard was a symbol of tradition, discipline, and ceremony. But behind that image was a reality few understood: constant awareness, readiness to act, and the courage to respond without hesitation. Every parade, every public appearance, every seemingly routine day carried risks that were often unseen. Holloway embraced this responsibility fully, understanding that heroism was not always public, but it was always real. The crowd's energy remained high. Children waved eagerly, adults cheered enthusiastically, and cameras captured countless smiles. Holloway maintained his silent watch, blending seamlessly into the ceremonial procession. He was aware of every subtle sound: the shuffle of feet, the rustle of flags, the distant murmur of conversation, all forming a detailed map of the environment in his mind. Each observation contributed to his ability to respond effectively should another threat appear. Princess Kate continued to smile and wave, radiating calm and grace. Holloway's eyes followed her, ensuring that every angle, every possible vulnerability was covered. He remained a quiet guardian, fully aware that the crowd's happiness and oblivious enjoyment depended on his presence. His mind cataloged every face, every posture, and every potential anomaly, maintaining a state of readiness even as the parade moved forward smoothly. As the carriage approached the final stretch of the parade route, Holloway's awareness extended beyond immediate threats. He considered secondary scenarios: objects accidentally dropped into the path, spectators moving unpredictably, or any unexpected disruption that could cause harm. His training had taught him that vigilance required thinking ahead, anticipating the unexpected, and acting preemptively when necessary. His movements reflected this philosophy: calm, deliberate, and controlled, yet ready to respond instantly. The moment of potential danger had passed, yet the adrenaline lingered in Holloway's system. He remained alert, understanding that the parade was far from over. His thoughts briefly turned inward, reflecting on the training, discipline, and experience that had prepared him for this very moment. Every drill, every simulation, every lesson learned had converged in the split-second actions that had protected the princess. It was a silent victory, one without fanfare, yet deeply satisfying. Holloway's focus extended to the larger context of his duty. He understood that the role of the Royal Guard was not simply ceremonial; it was protective, vigilant, and essential. The public saw pageantry, tradition, and spectacle. He saw the responsibility behind every step, every position, and every movement. The parade was a living exercise in coordination, awareness, and readiness, and Holloway had executed his role with precision and care. The carriage moved steadily toward the end of the parade route, the crowd cheering louder with each passing moment. Holloway maintained his position beside it, every step a blend of discipline, readiness, and silent protection. He remained alert to every movement, scanning the crowd, and ensuring that no additional threats emerged. The energy of the spectators was infectious, yet he kept his focus unwavering, knowing that his calm vigilance was the shield that allowed the public to enjoy the day safely. As the parade reached its conclusion, Holloway allowed himself a subtle moment of reflection. The immediate danger had been averted, the princess remained safe, and the public remained blissfully unaware. He felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing that his actions had preserved safety, protected life, and upheld the integrity of the Royal Guard. His role was not to seek recognition, but to serve silently, to act decisively when necessary, and to maintain a presence that ensured both safety and ceremony. Even as the cheers of the crowd echoed and the music played, Holloway's focus remained steady. He cataloged every detail of the event, noting the crowd's behavior, the flow of the parade, and the effectiveness of the response to the code red alert. Each observation would later contribute to refining training and preparedness, ensuring that future events would be even safer. His commitment to duty was absolute, and his dedication unwavering. The final moments of the parade passed without incident. The horses trotted to a stop, the music faded, and the crowd began to disperse, still smiling, still waving, and still taking photographs. Princess Kate acknowledged the spectators one last time before stepping down from the carriage. Holloway remained close, ensuring her safe transition, his vigilance never fully relaxing. Though the immediate threat had passed, the responsibility of protection extended to every moment, every movement, and every interaction. Finally, as the crowds began to thin and the parade concluded, Holloway felt a sense of quiet relief. The crisis had been handled successfully, the princess remained unharmed, and the public had enjoyed a perfect day. Yet the satisfaction was subtle, almost imperceptible, because the nature of his duty required humility, discretion, and a constant readiness to act. Holloway's focus had never wavered, and the parade had proceeded flawlessly because of his silent vigilance. The parade had finally ended, the streets gradually returning to their normal rhythm. The crowds, still buzzing with excitement, began to disperse. Children clutched their souvenirs tightly, parents lifted them down from shoulders, and photographers packed away cameras, satisfied with the perfect shots of the royal procession. The sun hung high, casting a warm glow over the city, highlighting the historic buildings and cobblestone streets. It was a day that would live in the memory of many for its joy and celebration. Yet for Sergeant James Holloway, the day had left a deeper mark, one that went beyond public applause or photographs. Holloway walked with measured steps behind the carriage, the adrenaline of earlier moments slowly fading but leaving behind a sharp awareness. He had acted decisively, intercepting a potential threat and protecting Princess Kate, yet no one in the crowd had even noticed. To them, he was simply a part of the pageantry, another figure in a red uniform. To him, however, the events of the day had been profoundly real. Every split-second decision, every adjustment of stance, every subtle observation had mattered. In his mind, the parade had been more than a ceremony. It had been a demonstration of vigilance, skill, and responsibility. As the carriage came to a halt at the palace gates, Kate stepped out gracefully. Her smile remained radiant, her composure flawless. She waved to the public one last time, unaware of the silent guardian who had shielded her from harm just moments before. Holloway followed, remaining close, ensuring her safe transition from the carriage to the secure area behind the gates. The palace staff and additional security personnel moved efficiently, coordinating behind the scenes, while the public continued to cheer from the perimeter. Holloway's presence was invisible, yet indispensable. After the immediate duties of the parade were complete, Holloway was guided to a quieter area for a debrief. Here, the reality of what had happened began to sink in. The code red alert had not been a false alarm, and his swift, instinctive actions had prevented what could have been a serious incident. Holloway reflected on the moments of tension, the subtle glint in the crowd, the split-second decisions, and the physical positioning that had blocked the potential threat. Every motion he had taken had been deliberate, practiced, and instinctual, yet it had all come together flawlessly in the moment that counted most. In the debrief room, Holloway quietly detailed his observations to the head of royal security. His account was precise, methodical, and clear, noting every detail of the figure's movements, the crowd's reactions, and his own actions. The officials listened intently, nodding in understanding, recognizing that his vigilance had prevented disaster. While Holloway spoke with calm professionalism, internally he allowed himself a quiet acknowledgement of his own effectiveness. It was a rare, private satisfaction, one that came not from recognition, but from knowing that he had fulfilled his duty to the highest standard. Moments later, Princess Kate herself entered the room. She approached Holloway with a warm smile, her eyes meeting his with gratitude. "Thank you," she said softly, her voice carrying sincerity and appreciation. Holloway nodded, maintaining his composed demeanor, yet the simple acknowledgement meant more than words could convey. It was a reminder that, despite the public spectacle, personal safety and trust had been preserved through his actions. In that moment, the invisible heroism of the Royal Guard was quietly recognized, not in headlines or applause, but in genuine appreciation from the person whose life he had protected. Holloway reflected on the nature of his role. Being a Royal Guard was often seen as ceremonial, part of a historic tradition that involved precise movements, immaculate uniforms, and public presence. Yet behind the polished appearance was a reality that few truly understood. It was a role that demanded constant vigilance, split-second decision-making, and the courage to act without hesitation. Heroism in this position was often invisible, quiet, and uncelebrated, yet profoundly impactful. Holloway understood that his day had been a testament to the dedication and skill required for this unique duty. As the day progressed, Holloway returned to his station, resuming ceremonial duties as though nothing had occurred. The public remained unaware, enjoying the continued festivities and the presence of the royal family. Holloway moved with the same calm, disciplined precision as before, his posture and expression unwavering. Yet beneath the uniform, a sense of quiet accomplishment lingered. He had acted decisively when it mattered most, ensuring safety while maintaining the seamless illusion of calm that allowed the public to enjoy the celebration. Throughout the afternoon, Holloway's mind replayed the events of the parade. He considered the importance of training, the lessons learned from simulations, and the practical application of experience in real-life scenarios. Every observation had been catalogued, every response analyzed, and every decision reaffirmed the value of preparation and awareness. The parade, for all its pageantry and public attention, had been a test of skill, vigilance, and composure, and Holloway had succeeded in passing it flawlessly. Beyond professional satisfaction, Holloway felt a personal sense of fulfillment. Protecting Princess Kate had required more than physical readiness. It had demanded emotional discipline, quick judgment, and calm under pressure. He realized that his actions were a quiet expression of duty, honor, and integrity. The public did not see the split-second calculations, the careful positioning, or the instinctual reactions that had ensured safety. Yet he understood that heroism was not always public. It was often quiet, patient, and deeply personal. In the following days, Holloway received subtle recognition from his colleagues and superiors. There were nods of respect, brief comments of appreciation, and professional acknowledgement of his decisive actions. These small gestures reinforced the importance of teamwork, coordination, and the shared responsibility of protecting the royal family. While there were no headlines or public announcements, Holloway valued these acknowledgments. They were affirmations of skill, professionalism, and dedication to duty. Reflecting on the experience, Holloway thought about the nature of courage. It was not about seeking glory or recognition. It was about presence of mind, quick thinking, and the unwavering commitment to protect others, even when unseen. The day's events had demonstrated that heroism was as much about preparation and awareness as it was about action. Each decision, each movement, each instinctive response had contributed to a positive outcome. The parade had been both a public celebration and a private test, and Holloway had risen to the challenge. Holloway also considered the human side of the responsibility. Princess Kate was not just a symbol of royalty. She was a person, deserving of safety, trust, and respect. The thought of her smiling and waving to the public, completely unaware of the threat, reinforced the profound impact of his actions. It was a reminder that duty was not abstract. It was personal, tangible, and deeply meaningful. Protecting life, ensuring security, and acting decisively in moments of danger were at the heart of his role. The day concluded with Holloway returning to his barracks, the streets now quieter, the echoes of the parade fading into memory. He removed his polished boots, set aside his uniform, and allowed himself a quiet moment of reflection. The adrenaline had faded, the public had enjoyed a perfect celebration, and the immediate danger had passed. Yet the sense of responsibility lingered, a reminder that vigilance was not temporary, it was a commitment. Holloway's dedication to duty extended beyond the parade, beyond public recognition, and into every aspect of his professional life. In that quiet moment, Holloway felt a profound sense of connection to the history and tradition of the Royal Guard. Each generation of guards had faced challenges, both seen and unseen, carrying forward a legacy of discipline, courage, and honor. Holloway understood that his actions on that day were part of this continuum, a modern reflection of values honed over centuries. The parade had been more than a public celebration. It had been a demonstration of vigilance, professionalism, and quiet heroism, and Holloway had upheld that legacy with precision and integrity. As he reflected further, Holloway realized that heroism often went unnoticed. The public celebrated tradition, ceremony, and spectacle, yet the invisible protection behind the scenes was what allowed those moments to be safe and joyful. The quiet acts of vigilance, the split-second decisions, and the unseen presence of trained professionals ensured that public figures and citizens alike could enjoy life without fear. Holloway had been one such guardian, and he carried that knowledge with a sense of quiet pride. By the end of the day, Holloway felt a calm satisfaction. The parade had concluded successfully, the princess remained safe, and the public had experienced joy and celebration. His role as a royal guard had been fully realized, not in the eyes of the crowd, but in the results of his actions. The experience reinforced his commitment to duty, the value of training, and the importance of vigilance. It was a day that demonstrated the quiet, powerful impact of heroism, preparation, and unwavering dedication. Finally, Holloway allowed himself to acknowledge the full significance of the day. The parade had been a test, the threat had been real, and his actions had ensured a positive outcome. Princess Kate's safety had been preserved, the public had enjoyed a seamless celebration, and the integrity of the royal guard had been upheld. The experience left a lasting impression, not as a story for headlines, but as a testament to the quiet courage, professionalism, and steadfast dedication that defined his service.